Welcome to Tasking. I invite you to join me and other amazing and inspiring women discussing our passion, work, discovering our purpose, interesting topics, and how we seem to have it all together. I hope we can motivate you and show you you can do it too, with some planning, a little bit of balance, and a dash of determination. This is Tasking. Hello, world. Welcome to another inspiring episode of Tasking. I am your host, Dr. Lolliday. And on today's show, we have my dear friend and amazing woman of God, Dr. Kimmy, of the podcast Productive on Purpose. She's a mother of two, wife, and is a board-certified and award-winning physician, public speaker, and host of the most realest self-improvement podcast I've ever listened to, ever, hands down. And I'm not just saying this because she's my friend. It is my pleasure to welcome my amazing buddy, friend, Dr. Kimmy, to the show.
Hey, thank you for that intro, Lola. Thank you.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
so excited to be here.
No. Well, I'm so glad you basically took me up on coming up to this show. So before we get started, as you all know, we do the Learn to Be Balanced in 5 minutes. And on today, we're going to talk about the 7 principles of an eagle. So it was started by, or the first time I heard about this was when I read about Pastor Dr. Myles Monroe, who's since dead, may God rest his soul. But when he was alive, he talked about that God only identified himself in the entire Bible with 2 animals, the lion and the eagle. So if you listen to this podcast, you've probably heard the episode about the lion, but today we're going to focus more on the eagle and specifically the 7 principles of the eagles. If you go online and look for motivational things, you will probably see a lot of people talk about eagles, but this one is specifically from Dr. Myles Monroe's book. So first of all, I'll start with association, and this is me summarizing what I think he was talking about. So association, eagles fly alone and they fly in high altitude. They don't mix with sparrows or other smaller birds. So what does that mean, right? Eagles fly alone. It doesn't necessarily mean they're loners. It just means they fly with people that have their vision. Okay. So it's not saying don't have friends that don't have visions or are not focused, but when you want to get to where you need to get to, you need to surround yourself with people who have similar visions with you and who can also help you improve or give a constructive criticism. And I thought this was amazing when I read this. There's no point hanging around people that all they're going to do is tear you down, or they don't even understand your vision to start off with. It doesn't necessarily mean you can go partying with the people or you can have them as friends. It just means when it comes to your vision and your purpose, you may not want to tell them too much about it if all they're going to do is bring you down. Okay? Focus. So number 2 is focus. Eagles have strong vision. They can see up to 5 kilometers from the air to see their prey. That is like amazing. They are narrowly focused, and as soon as they see that prey, they will dive down, not looking left, not looking right. There's no obstacle that will basically get in their way that will get them from grabbing that prey. What he says is when you have a vision, you got to remain focused no matter what the obstacle, and you will succeed. Like, you're going to have obstacles, but in you actually knowing you're going to have obstacles, you would actually prevail. So no matter what you're doing right now, no matter what setback has happened, you need to stay focused. It's okay to have a little bit of time to grieve, dust your feet off, and calculate or reassess or reestablish things. Number 3, learners. Eagles are learners. And the way I see this is, so basically he talks about eagles do not eat dead things. They feed off fresh prey. Vultures eat dead animals, but eagles don't. Steer away from outdated, old information. There's no points like eating dead things, wasting your time eating dead things to like mess up your body, mess up your soul. I also, when I read that, I also saw that as if you're listening to things that are not edifying your mind, you should not be listening to it.
Mhm.
If you're
Mhm.
eating
Mhm.
eating things that are not edifying your body, you should not be eating it. You're a child of God, so you should always, always, like when I say learner, like learn fresh things because things update all the time. Eat fresh food. Healthy food are like medicine to your soul. Listen or bring in only things that will make you feel good. Okay. If the news these days is giving you anxiety, shut off the news. Guess what? Life is gonna move on and the news is still gonna be there tomorrow. Okay. Challenger. Eagles are the only bird that really love the storm. When a storm is going on, when the clouds gather, they get like super excited, and the eagle actually uses the wings of the storm to rise up and push themselves higher. Once it finds the wing of the storm, the eagle just stops flapping and lets the pressure of the storm carry it and glides through it. So, what basically I took from that is that no matter what, we're going to have storms in our lives. And we could either see those storms as obstacles or troubles, or we could see it as ways of us um improving ourselves or getting better, right? So for those of you that listen to this podcast, you've probably heard the podcast about me losing my freaking hard drive. Oh, excuse my language. Losing my hard drive. I'm still pissed. Me losing my
I
hard drive.
understand, girl.
Me losing my hard drive. You know what? I'm angry and pissed, but you know what? It actually gave me the opportunity to reassess my podcast and redo things, and and now I'm actually like, oh, maybe I should do this another way. Because you know what? It deleted all the old things I had done. And it gave me a new perspective. So I could either sit down and moan and cry, which I did a little bit, or but I didn't stay in it. I moved on, right? Or I could take it as a way to grow. So I want us to just see storms as way of growth. It doesn't mean we'll like it, but grow from it. Okay. Then the next one is trust but verify. I used to use this a lot in residency and fellowship. Like when I would tell like my interns to go do something, even now actually. My interns or people that work for me, oh, do you mind doing this? Do you mind doing I trust that they would do it, but I verify. Okay. Ego tests before they trust. Like a female eagle, before she says, okay, I will mate with you, she basically takes a twig, flies as high as she can fly, and the male follows her, drops the twig, and sees if the male can catch the twig before the twig hits the floor. Girl.
Okay, okay, Lady Eagle. Okay.
Yeah.
Put him
And
to
she
the
does
test,
that
girl.
over and over and over again till she realizes that, okay, maybe he's ready for this. Because eagles, when they mate, the male actually helped them raise the baby. So she needs to know you could catch some twigs and build a house. So I think we need to put this in both our personal life and our professional life. It is not okay to say, oh, he's fine, I'm going to marry him. No. You need to test him and see, is he really a good father? Try him. Let him babysit some of your crazy little cousins and see how he acts towards them. I'm serious. Let him just just test him like, oh, I need money for this, and just see how he responds. I'm not saying be a gold digger, yeah, but just see how he responds. You gotta test people to see their true
Mhm.
colors sometimes, right?
Mhm.
And then also in professional life. Just because you're best friends with something does not mean best friend with somebody does not mean that person needs to be your professional partner. You got to
Mhm.
test them and actually see if they can rise to the occasion.
Mhm.
The next one is prepare for failure or attacks. So what that means is, so basically, like eagles, I talked about how the male picks the twigs and stuff. When they do the nest of their baby, first of all, they go as high as possible away from the prey. Have you ever seen an eagle's nest? I've never seen an eagle's nest. They go really, really high above the rocks. And then when they even get there, they put it on a cliff where no predators can reach it. And when they build the nest of the for the what they call the little eaglets, I guess. When they build the nest, when they I'm sorry, I should know this. I don't. But They basically they'll go get like little shrubs and then get thorns to surround it, and then they'll put a feather around it. Okay, so even if the eagles, there's a prey that happens to get up there, up on the cliff, how high it is, they have protection protecting their eaglets or eggs or whatever is in the nest. Okay, so we got to be ready for failures because we know failures are going to come. We got to be ready for attacks because we know attacks are going to come regardless.
Mhm.
So it could be spiritual where you need to do prayers, or it could be, physical, like backing up your hard drive. So
Mhm.
and then the last one is shedding off. So shedding off, I saw this one as shedding off your attitude, shedding off bad influences. So they said when eagles grow old, they will like, or they feel like their feathers are weak, they will go to away from the rocks and basically pluck out their entire feathers from their body, which is weird to me, and until
What?
you're completely bare. Yes, and then they stay in the hiding place till new feathers grow, which is
Wow.
interesting. So it's basically like if you feel like there are things that are getting in your way or old habits that are not making you get to your full potential, maybe it's time to reassess. Go sit down, take a break, and pluck out
Mm.
whatever it is and renew yourself and then come back. Yes, we talk about being focused, right? Yeah, you need to be focused, but if there are a lot of things that are preventing you from being focused, maybe you need
Mhm.
therapy, right? Or maybe you
Oh,
just need
yes.
or maybe you just need to learn new strategies. But that concludes my seven principle of being an amazing person by Dr. Miles Monroe. Is there anything you wanted to add, Dr. Kimmy?
So, first of all, Dr. Myles Monroe is everything. And when he died, it was so hard for me. It's so hard for me that I can't even like read his stuff or watch his videos because it makes me so sad.
Really?
Yeah, because he was so impactful for me. But I feel like I need to get whatever this book is and read it ASAP.
Um,
Because, like,
I'm gonna
again,
put it in
it's
the show notes.
okay, perfect. So I think what stood out to me is that, first of all, I didn't know that God only described himself as two, like like a lion. I've heard the lion, but I didn't
Yeah.
necessarily fully understand the eagle. And sometimes, we hear these analogies, but we don't understand like why. Like we don't
Why?
delve into it. We're just like, oh yeah, fly on wings like eagles. It's just like a cliche, but
Mm-hmm.
like it's so deep. Like I love that you broke it down like that. The one that stood out to me was the fact that an eagle how did you put it? The eagle, like they like the storms, like they fly
They
on they
glide
like
above they use it. They glide
they
above the
use the
storm.
storm. That
Yes.
is so like I'm getting chills. That's so powerful because like it's just such a human thing to like you have a storm, you shut
Mhm.
down, woe is
Right.
me, everything is lost, but it's like so I could actually use this to like make myself better. I need to like I'm like writing this down. I'm like I need to like study this. This is like this is like I really think I was supposed to hear that. Like that message was for me. So thank
Oh, thank you. No, thank you. It's good to know. I just feel like we all need to continue to grow, and we're like,
you.
like the eagle, we need to continue to learn. And whatever it is, I'm learning. Giving to my audience as well to learn. And I hope whoever comes on here, I can learn from them too. So with that
Right.
being said, first of all, I want you to tell them a little bit more about yourself because what I told them was just basically the teeny teeny tip of Dr.
Mhm,
Kimmy
mhm,
and
mhm.
how you came about productive on purpose.
Okay, so this is a little bit of a long story, so I'm going to try to condense it as much as possible. So basically, my name's Dr. Kimmy, and I'm from Inglewood, California. So like I was, raised in on the West Coast. My mom is Jamaican, my whole family's Jamaican. I didn't grow up with my dad, and I had a very like sort of contentious relationship with my dad, only because he wasn't really around much. And additionally, he didn't really know. Like that was like literally his thing. Like I don't really know how to deal with girls. So I like grew up with this like insecurity about just being me. Like I can't change the fact that I'm a girl, right? So it's like I was always like there's something about me that isn't right, right? So just
Right.
kind of went through life, with that like burden, kind of on always on my shoulder. However, I was very ambitious, very driven. I always knew I wanted to be a doctor. I always knew that I wanted to be a pediatrician, like my whole life. My mom was a pediatric nurse, so I think that's what helped with that. So, college, got a full ride scholarship. College was fine, but I always felt like I wouldn't say attracting, well, perhaps attracting the wrong crowd, but not
Mm-hmm.
wrong in like people who are drinking and smoking, but just
Right.
people who were not eagles, right? So this is like a
Yes.
great analogy, like
The pigeons and
people
the sparrows.
exactly. So they wanted to pull me down to their level. And the thing about it is, I saw the signs and ignored them because of my own like self-doubt and insecurities. Like, ignored the signs of like, these people are not for you. Same thing in medical school, same exact thing. Like, the folks that I was with, it's like if you're trying to rise above, they're like, what are you doing? Like, are you trying to be better than me? And you're like, no, I'm just studying. Like, what
I'm
do you,
just doing me, the gunners and the
I'm just doing
snipers. We're
me.
going to talk about that on
Ex-
another show.
Listen, so I got to residency and so that's where Lola and I know each other. Sorry, what am I supposed to call you? Dr. Lola?
Dr. Lola. You can call me Lola.
Dr. Lola. Okay. So that's how Lola and I know each other because we trained together at Cincinnati Children's. So I got to
Choo-choo.
residency. Yes. But I started with a 3-month-old baby. So that was rough, right? And so went through residency and just had like crippling imposter syndrome. Just basically for the entire time just thought that I don't belong here. They're gonna find me out. Someone's gonna eventually realize I'm not supposed to be here. But managed to make it through successfully. Did it, I really loved residency. Was Our residency program was amazing, right?
It's
So
definitely the
there
best,
were
hands down. Best.
best in the country. So there were folks there that like really encouraged and supported me. But what happened was when I became a fellow and then a faculty member, that's when like stuff like hit the fan, right? That's when the imposter syndrome really stood out because now you're supposed to have it all together. You're a faculty member, right? Like, come on, like get it together. Like, what are you doing? So you have people looking up to you, you have your residents looking up to you, you have students looking up to you, your mentors are like, all right, let's do this new project. And you're just struggling with this crippling imposter syndrome. So that was happening at the same time that I got pregnant, and then at the same time that my mother got like very, very sick, and my mother was healthy her whole life, got sick, and then eventually passed away. So I found myself in this place, and so it was December of 2017. My mother had been dead for about a year and a half, and no, my mother had been dead for about 6 months. And about the 6 month mark, that's when people start looking at you like, okay, what's going
Get
on?
it
Like, get your
together
stuff
now.
together, get it together, right? And and I was not in therapy at the time, right? So I'm still struggling, and people are looking at me like, all right, come on, you got deliverables. There's stuff you need to be doing.
Mm.
Um, and I just remember sitting at my desk one day and just I typed this note on Facebook, and I was like, have you ever felt so tired that you just can't even move? And it hit me. I don't know how. I think it was God for sure. And I was like, am I really going to Facebook to get answers?
Right,
Why am I
right,
not going? Why, like, God was like, why are you not coming to me? Like, what are you doing?
right.
I closed Facebook, shut off the app, like, deactivated all of my social media. And right after that, I got a therapist, which I should have done. First of all, everyone needs a therapist, like
Hmm.
at baseline. But it wasn't until I hit that low point of, I was anxious all the time. I was not being productive in anything. My boss was like, what's going on? Like, it was just a very, very low point for me. But the best thing I did, and I give God so much praise for that grace to like realize this in that moment, was like I closed down all my social media
Mm.
and I started journaling and really, trying to develop like a spiritual practice, which I'm sure we'll talk about
Right.
later. And it took me like a good year and a half to like, of going to therapy, of prayer, of journaling, of really like getting real with myself before I like got to the point that I pulled myself out of that like depression. Um, and I can say that now. I was probably
Yeah.
depressed. I didn't have a diagnosis, but
Right.
probably, right? Pulled myself out of that and then um realized that, the stuff that the elements of how I was, getting my life together could help someone
Mhm.
else. And I,
Right.
developed, started writing the blog, and people were responding and saying, this is so helpful. This is so great. And that's when sort of Productive on Purpose came together because I was like, I feel like I have been put on this earth, like all of my failures and struggles, like what's the point if it can't help somebody else, right? So I
Yep.
kind of packaged all of that together. At first it was a blog, and then I realized that I love podcasts, and so I decided to turn it into a podcast, and that's like the very, very as much as short as I could get it,
So
but
you did a fantastic job summarizing it, but I would tell anybody, and I'll definitely put your blog link in the show notes.
Mhm.
You need to go on her blog. And I'm not just saying, yes, I support all my friends. Yes, I do. But this one particularly, I have known Kane for like over 10 years now,
Yeah,
right?
it's been
For
about a
at least
decade, yeah.
10 years. And listening to her blog, I was like, oh, dang. Oh my gosh. Like, this is great, you know? So it was actually good. And I think it would be very helpful. I sent it out to people like, you need to listen to it. Don't even start from the
Cute.
last episode that is on. You got
Yeah,
to start from the
from the
beginning
beginning.
because you have to understand the beginning to understand and appreciate this woman and what she's delivering to you. And when I was done, like I sent her a text and I was like, listen, everything that's happened to you, this is your purpose. I know you know it already, but let me just go ahead and confirm it for you.
I
Okay.
appreciate that. I appreciate the confirmation because you still want to hear it sometimes, am
Yeah.
I on the right track, So I appreciate
Exactly.
that.
But with that being said, you said a lot of things about imposter syndrome. I feel like most of us know it, but there might be someone that's listening and is like, what is imposter syndrome? Do you mind
Yeah.
just going into detail about it and why it's important and how you could get yourself self-sabotaged by a
Yeah. So, imposter syndrome is something that's super interesting to me, and I'm studying it right now because, like, kind of like my podcast is centered around it. Um, it is feeling like a fraud or feeling like you don't belong despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary, right? So, it's something that affects high achieving people. And I want to make a clear distinction though. It's not low self-esteem.
no.
So some people get it twisted and they'll be like, I don't have imposter syndrome. Like, I don't have low self-esteem. I don't have low self-esteem. If I had low self-esteem, I would not have applied to med school. I would not have applied
Right.
and ranked Cincinnati Children's as my number one program. I would not have the confidence to be a faculty member. So it's not about low self-esteem. I know I can do those things, which is why I go after them. I'm a driven person, I'm an ambitious person, just like you, just like many other high achieving women, and especially women of color, and
Right.
especially Black women, right? But
Mm-hmm.
when you get into the role, you have these feelings of, oh my goodness, I'm a fraud. Someone's going to find out like I'm not as good as the next person,
Right.
or it could manifest as perfectionism. So some people think perfectionism is a good thing, and it can be, but usually perfectionism is really just procrastination, right? Lola's raising her hand. So, so perfectionism is really just you procrastinating, and because you do, so you could procrastinate by saying I'm not going to start, Or you can procrastinate by saying, I'm going to start and I'm going to take 2 years to do something that really only takes like a month.
Yep.
And I'm going to, get it right, get it right, get it right. But it's all stemming from a place of, I don't want to fail. I don't want to
Hmm.
put this out and then be seen as a failure. And it's all based on the same underlying feelings of imposter syndrome. And so I would literally walk through the hospital. Like I would, okay, let me give you an example. I would go to rounds. So rounds for non-physicians on here is when you're like seeing your patients. For me, because I work with residents and students, is when we're, discussing patients and teaching and all of that. I would do that because I'm a hospitalist. And that part would be fine, right? Because I'm a competent physician, right? And I pride myself on that. So rounds would be great, give great patient care, working with the residents, teaching them, all that's great. And go back to my office. Okay, now it's time to do my billing and now it's time to do my notes. And it's
Hmm.
like I just get stuck, right? I just
Hmm.
got stuck because for me, and imposter syndrome manifests in different ways from different
Right.
people. For me, it manifests as procrastination with like not getting started. So some people will start their notes and like spend 6 hours doing it because it has to be exactly right and perfect. Me,
Yeah.
I just don't even start. Right? Like I didn't. I'm over that now. I'm much better.
Right.
But like I just didn't even want to start because it gave me so much anxiety of like, but what if somebody looks at my note and it's not good? And what
Mm.
if I miss something or I get something wrong? So that's how imposter syndrome manifested for me. And it manifests different for different people. But for me, it manifested in like official tasks, like official paperwork was like really, really hard for me to get through and to do. So the main thing is that imposter syndrome is not low self-esteem because
Yep.
people with true low self-esteem are like, I want to be a nurse or I want to be a doctor, but they can't even bring themselves to apply or to like take the
Right.
classes. That's not us, right? Like we're high
Hmm.
achieving. We've done a lot, but it's just that sometimes we feel those feelings of I don't belong here. Other people are better than me. I'm gonna fail. And so that's how I kind of conceptualize
And
imposter syndrome.
I totally, totally agree with you. And I feel like another big distinction between imposter syndrome and low self-esteem is that a lot of times with low self-esteem, people can see it from the outside, right?
Okay,
Im-
yes, oh my gosh, yes.
Imposter syndrome is within you, and everybody's looking at you like, you say, who? What? Like, you're like the bomb.com. And you
Listen,
think
and
you
that's
think you're thinking I'm just a buh. They're like, no, 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 no. You like there's a reason why you are the only one of four African Americans in this program, right? There's a reason
exactly.
why you are, but you know you're good. You know you're great. You just don't feel like you're as enough, or maybe you can do more, you know?
Exactly,
So,
exactly. I think that's so key because, like, for instance, with me, I give off an air of like confidence, right? I give off an air of, and I'm really tall. If you've never met me, I'm like 6'2". I don't like to claim that extra inch, but whatever. They say I'm 6'2", whatever. So, so like, I give off like when I'm walking through the hospital of like, oh man, look at this like, tall black woman in her white coat and, her short hairstyle and she just has it all together. My residents tell me that all the time. They're like, Dr. Reynolds, you just look like you just have it all together. And
right,
that's why a lot of my residents listen to the podcast and like follow me on Instagram and they're like, we had no idea that you were struggling with this. Like they're fascinated because you give off an air of like, oh man, like you have it all together, but it's internal, right? Like within
right,
you, just like you said, within you, you're like, oh my gosh, like when are they gonna find out that I'm not supposed to be here? It's all internal.
right.
You don't walk around like with your head hanging low, and that's what makes it so hard. And people who don't experience it don't really understand because they're like, but then like why did you even go into a faculty role if you feel like an imposter? It's like because I know I can do it and I
Do
love
it.
it.
And he's like, you know you can do it, but you feel like maybe they don't think you can do it too, you
Exactly,
know?
exactly. So it's very unique. It's very interesting, but when you have it and you hear the signs, you know. Like
Right.
people who don't have it, they don't get it. So I've talked to people about
Mhm.
imposter syndrome and they're just like, but like, why don't you just, have confidence in yourself? And you're like, it's not about confidence. I
You're
have
like,
confidence.
yeah. The way I am right now, do I look like someone with no confidence?
Exactly, exactly. But the women, and that's why I speak to the women who know. You
Right.
know, you might not
Been
have the
there, done that.
vocabulary. Yeah, you
Been
might not
there,
have the
done that.
vocabulary for it, but when you hear it, you're like, "Oh, that's me." So
Hmm.
that's the folks I have a heart for because basically that's me. So my
Right.
community is made up of people just like me, who are struggling with this.
And to be honest, like you're not meant to be a professor to everybody, and you can only teach what you know. So, and there are a lot of people out there. Like the more I talk about it or I hear people talking about it, I'm like, oh, you too? Oh, you too? It's a lot of people out there, and it's just great to have that community. So, with that being said, to stay away a little bit of from imposter syndrome, you talked about it being you having syndrome sometimes can lead to procrastination or is associated a little bit with procrastination. And I remember listening to one of your podcasts, and I'm not gonna let her give y'all all the deets on this because I want you to go listen to her podcast.
Yes, you gotta
And you talk
listen.
about and you talk about the pop principles. You mentioned the five
Yes.
pop
hmm
principles. Do you mind just going just little tips about the five so that people can kind of hear from it and then they can go in and listen more on.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so the POP principle, so productive on purpose principles, is basically I looked back over the past year when I started feeling like I was getting my life together, and I was like, what exactly, like, what are the real things that I've done that have worked, right? And I'm a person that if you listen to the podcast or read my blog or follow me on Instagram, I'm not really about like the woo-woo stuff, like the affirmations and the this, the that, and the, sage burn this. Like, no,
Yeah,
we're
you,
not doing
but give me
that.
some actionable tips.
Listen, listen, like give me actual strategies that can help. So the pop principle, so the first one is the zone of proximal greatness. So basically the zone of proximal greatness just means a lot of times we are trying to be great, right? We start January, we like put up a vision board and we're like, oh, by next year I want to have a mansion and a Tesla and a banging body. And it's like, ma'am, like, where is that going to come from? It's not to say you can't get there, but how
Yeah.
about we talk about the actual steps and like building habits to get to that point, right? So the zone of proximal greatness just means let's just move incrementally to become our next best self.
Right.
Just move the next, what's the best thing I can do right now to become my next best self, to move into the zone of proximal, meaning next to greatness. Stop trying to think about greatness 10 years from now. You can have that as a goal,
Right.
but let's move incrementally. So, that's the first thing. Like, I stopped trying to be like perfect, right? Like I just want to have the perfect life. And I just said, okay, what can I do today to make today a great day that moves me toward my goals? And once I did that, it's like once you start putting one foot in front of the other, you
Hmm.
look back and you've done a whole marathon. But
Right.
if you're just like, I want to run a marathon, you just start sprinting, you're going to burn out, especially if you haven't been training for it. So it's
Hmm.
just about taking the small incremental steps. And once you do that, it alleviates a lot of the anxiety that we who are like perfectionists tend to have of like, I got to do this perfectly. No, you don't. You just have to do the next best thing. What
Right.
is the next best thing? So that's the first one. The second one is, and this is a little bit controversial and I say it like this on purpose, but I say mindset doesn't matter. And it's not that mindset doesn't matter. Mindset is everything, but you have to change your actions to change your mindset. Right? Like some people, they wake up in the morning, and I don't fault anyone for affirmations. Like sometimes I get a little bit of a bad rap for like, like railing against affirmations. I have no
Right.
problem with them as long as they're moving you into your zone of proximal greatness,
Right.
right? Like
Right.
if your affirmations are actually helping you to get to your next best self, that's fine. But just like standing in the mirror and doing a power pose and saying, I am great, I am awesome, it makes you feel good in the moment. But how are you actually like doing great and awesome things, right? But
Right.
once you start doing great and awesome things, then you believe that you are great and awesome. So
Right.
this my example ties into the next principle, which is the morning promise. I used to be a big snoozer. I would wake up and hit the snooze button, and every 9 minutes I would wake up again, right? And so you're sort of teaching your mind that you can't do hard things. Waking up is hard, right? Every time you hit the snooze button, you're teaching yourself, I can't do hard things, right?
Right.
But once I stopped snoozing and I set my alarm and I started keeping my morning promise to myself of when I say I'm going to wake up at 5, I'm going to actually get out of bed and start moving, that changes your mindset. Just the action of getting up when you say you're going to get up and starting your
Mhm.
day intentionally, that is what changes your mindset. But if I just like go to bed every night and say, okay, I'm great, I'm gonna, do great things tomorrow, but then I snooze for like an hour and a half,
You
what are you
just
gonna
lied to
do?
yourself.
Listen, first of all, you lie to yourself, right? You lie to yourself, and you're gonna wake up frazzled. You're gonna be rushing throughout the day. You're gonna be like fussing at your kids, fussing at your husband, and then you sit down at your desk to do work. And then where's the affirmation? Oh, I do
Right.
great things. Well, really? Did you do something great that morning? No. So if you change your actions, your mindset will follow. So that's
Right.
like the next principle. The next one is the morning promise, which we just talked about. Stop lying to yourself every morning. If you had a friend who told you she was going to pick you up every day at 6 o'clock, and every day you woke up at 6 and she wasn't there and she has some excuse, right? And she came an hour and a half later, you would break up with that friend, right? Like you'd be
Mhm.
like, girl, you're not a friend, you a liar. Like get out of my
Yep.
face.
Yep.
But we do that to ourselves every
Mhm.
day. We lie to ourselves. Um, and it affects our unconscious mind because we're telling our mind, you can't do hard things. Like this is hard and you can't do it. So it's just about keeping your promise to yourself. The next one is and sorry, this ties into the morning promise. When I wake up in the morning, I have my morning like prayer routine. So like prayer and gratitude is it there's something about it that really I think changes the wiring in your brain. When you're
Mhm.
actually showing gratitude, it puts you in a place of abundance. So again, doing something and then that changes your mindset.
Right.
Like having a gratitude routine, that's going to change your mindset toward abundance. And then the last one is your purpose is in the edges. So we're all super busy. We're like, folks that are ripping and running all day long. But sometimes we feel like, okay, I want to do a podcast or I want to write a blog. I need to block off 6 hours of time
Right.
to do this, right? But I was listening to an interview by Toni Morrison. After she passed, I was listening to an interview from like 20 years ago, but I was listening to it after she passed away. And someone was asking her, how did you become like a best-selling author? You were like a single mom who was like
Mhm.
working full time trying to raise your kids. And she said, I would write in the edges of the day. And I was just like, whoa, what do you mean? Like, what is this? Like, edges, what's going on? And she basically said, 10 minutes here or there, 15 minutes here or there. Like, if you write for 10 minutes a day, you're a writer. And eventually you'll
Right.
have a book. Right. So
Mhm.
she would just like little snippets of time here and there rather than saying, okay, I need to block off 10 hours to write. Right. Because when are we ever going to get 10 hours to do anything? Right. Like we're mothers, we're wives, or whatever. Even if you're not,
Right.
you're super busy. And so I just started doing little things here and there, like 15 minutes, 10 minutes to move me into that zone to become my next best self. And that's when I realized, like, okay, like now I have a blog post. Now I have a whole
Right.
podcast, right? And guys, I need you, like, when you listen to the podcast, you'll understand. Like, it sounds like, oh, she has it all together. Guys, I was a hot mess. A hot mess. Like, I didn't have a planner. I would wake up and just be like, what am I supposed to do today? People would be calling me, like, why are you not in the
Yeah.
hospital? Like, it was a disaster. So, what you're hearing now is as a result of number one, therapy, and number two, these principles. And so that's what I like to teach folks now.
Yeah, it's so funny when I heard the pop principle. I mean I knew we're cool friends and I tend to gravitate to people that are like me.
Hmm.
I didn't realize how similar we were. Like I was like, these are all the things I do. Like what is
Exactly.
this?
Exactly. But for me, because I wasn't doing them, I had and then I started doing them, and then I realized like this could really help people because like if somebody
Right.
had told me do
And you're
these things,
sharing it. Yeah.
yeah, like I had no idea. And this is what all your favorite gurus, like this is the type of stuff that they do, but like
Hmm.
no one is telling you like how do I
Right.
actually do these
Exactly.
things? This is what they're
Yeah.
doing. So,
And it's funny, I was listening to it and I was like, well, we'll talk about this later, but I was like, we need to like start teaching our kids this, right? When they're younger,
yes.
not
Yes.
when they're adults and married with kids. And, it should be part of the things we train them and to teach them. So thank you so much for sharing that
Yeah, of
with
course.
people. But one thing that with everything, you know, I can still attest to the fact that yes, you're doing great, but it still cannot be easy, right?
Oh
It's
no.
still it's still not
Listen.
easy, especially having your husband who is also a doctor, PhD,
Mhm.
and I could put his stuff on there too if you want. Helping him in this stuff. You being a wife, because you still have mommy duty. You have your work
Mhm.
duty, you have mommy
Mhm.
duty, and you have wifey duty. With everything you're doing, like how do you have time to do it? How are you able to balance everything and still being able to give your kids their time and give your husband his time and give and follow your purpose in the
Yeah.
midst of it all?
Yeah. So for me, I live and die by my planner. Lola knows. And I don't like. It's not that I don't like the word balance. I just think balance is a little bit. It's hard to truly have balance. But what I do is I juggle. So, before like last year, I wasn't really juggling. I was literally just dropping balls all day long, right? Things were just falling. But now I'm very strategic about my juggling. So I
Right.
say if there's going to be a day, like for instance, if I'm doing a keynote address or if I'm, traveling to a conference, I intentionally have to unfortunately drop the family ball, right? And my husband is going to have to step up because I'm not there. I can't do my mommy duties at that time. But, if my son is, taking a big standardized test, I'm going to be dropping the work ball, right? So I can be there for him, make sure he has
Mhm.
a good breakfast in the morning. I'm
Right.
there to encourage him and support him. So, but I have to put all of that in my planner, because
Right.
like
Right.
if not, like I need to know. Oh, sorry. This is what I'm saying. Like it's just a mess. I need to know on any given day what ball I'm dropping. And
Right.
so every day is different. And like it might be in the morning, I'm doing pop stuff, right?
Mhm.
And so I'm dropping, I drop the kids off and then I'm like not doing any other family stuff until, I pick them up or I'm, gonna, go into work a little bit later because I need to record an episode. So it's just about for me, I just have to get my planner out and the type of planner I have a daily planner. So it shows the month, but then it shows my day kind of
Mhm.
broken down by the hour
Mhm.
because every hour I'm like, what do I need to be doing
Right.
to make sure that like I'm set up for success for the entire day?
So I'm gonna say that I don't necessarily, just like you don't like the word balance,
Hmm.
I don't necessarily think you're dropping the ball. And that in itself is a negative connotation, right? Like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. You are doing
It's
what you're
interesting.
Yeah, you
Hmm.
are doing what you're supposed to be doing, but not just at the time that the world thinks you should be doing it, right? You have a
True.
husband for a reason. He's your partner. You didn't
Hmm.
birth this kids by yourself.
Oh no, no,
So,
no. And he
right.
and he and my
And he
husband is
helps, right?
amazing.
So
Yeah.
don't when he's doing that part and you're not doing it, that's why you have a partner.
Hmm. Hmm.
Trust me, I don't when I'm recording, guess what? My husband is taking care of the kids when they wake up. It
Hmm.
doesn't mean I dropped the ball. it's just his turn to do it because I got to
Yeah.
do other stuff.
Yeah.
So I say more when I think of balance, I see more like a seesaw, like it goes
Yeah.
and down, So that to me, what you're doing is balancing, right? Being able to allocate time for different things at different
Mm.
time. And I don't want you to ever make yourself feel like, oh, I dropped the ball in this, I did, because I
No,
don't think you're
well,
doing
not so
it.
much, not so much. When I wrote about it on my blog, when I wrote about juggling, I didn't really use, and you're right, I'm not being clear. I shouldn't use the word drop the ball because that is negative. It's more so strategically placing the ball down, right? So it's like a
Right, right.
strategic, like strategically
And
saying,
that is
okay,
necessary.
this is what we're doing today, and this is not what we're doing today.
Exactly.
But I
And being
think
okay with it too.
yeah, and without guilt. And the hardest part
Right.
is like not having like mommy guilt or like wifey guilt because and when you see it as a juggle or as a balance, that like there's some days where it's going to be down and then it's going to come back up. It
Right, right.
helps you to alleviate some of that guilt because it's like, okay, yeah, I'm traveling to give this talk, but number one, I'm gonna be back, right? God willing. And then also, I like the fact that my kids see me, stepping out and putting myself out there to do these like, talks or whatever I'm doing so that they can feel inspired. So like it's not a fail just because I've left them or even if I'm leaving them for like a girls' weekend. That's not a failure.
Nope.
They need to know that they need to prioritize themselves. Like you literally cannot pour from an empty cup, right?
Exactly.
And so I want
Exactly.
my kids to know that it's okay to put yourself first so that you can take care of others and not be a martyr. I was a martyr for
Exactly.
so long and like it's not a good place to be in.
I know. I know. Like I'm gonna do a whole podcast on my, list of podcasts today. I'm gonna do a whole podcast about mommy guilt because it is real.
Listen,
And we
man,
need to get ourselves away from it because it
it's
is
true.
causing people to have anxiety attack,
Hmm.
panic
Hmm.
attack,
Hmm.
and just feeling very incapable
Hmm.
when
Hmm.
all we need to do is just chill.
Exactly. Just you're gonna be okay.
Oh my gosh. But this has been a fantastic episode. So I'm just going to wrap up with my typical 5 questions I ask all guests.
Hmm.
Um, and like I always say, these are actionable tips I want our listeners to hear and be able to learn from it and say, oh, she does that. Let me try that or whatever.
Hmm.
So, what is one thing that has helped you balance your life? We kind of talked about it a little bit.
Yeah. So, okay, so definitely if you are not like planning out your day, and it doesn't have to be a paper planner, it can be your Google Calendar. I prefer writing in paper, even though I have everything on my Google Calendar, I prefer writing. But you need to be planning your day, but don't just make long to-do lists, right? You have to prioritize. Like there's going to be some things on your to-do list that are urgent. Like someone is telling you you need to turn in this form. But is it really important? Probably not. It's important for someone else, but not for you. So do that, but don't spend a lot of time on it, right? You want to spend time on things that are important, meaning you like they're moving you into your zone, right? Of greatness. And so I actually I break down my to-do list in 4 parts and I go over this. So I'm sure Lola will put it in the show notes, but you can go to planning.productivepurpose.com and get like a free guide for like how I actually plan. I literally go step by step. First you do this, then you do that. Because what I used to do is just make a long to-do list and then I would just put it
Hmm.
in front of me and then just sit there because it feels overwhelming to have like 16 things on your to-do list. Like, am I
Right,
really going to get all those done? And then if I didn't get it done, then here comes the guilt. Here comes beating myself up, right? So
right.
it's more so about just being strategic with your to-do list, breaking it down into the things that are really, really important, and like making just like a top 3. If there are 3 things I can do today, that will make me feel accomplished, what are those three things?
Right.
And everything else is just like a nice to have, right? Nice to do if I can get to it. But
Right.
these are the three things I will be doing today. And then that has helped me so much alleviate some of that guilt. Because it's like if I just get these three things done, then I feel accomplished.
Done it. Yep.
So that's definitely one of my suggestions.
What about renewing your mind?
Okay, so renewing my mind. So I think that you can change your mindset from the things that you do. So every single morning, I write down a list of what I'm grateful for. So before Lola and I hopped on
Ah,
this call, before we hopped on this call, and I told her I was getting my coffee, that was true, but I was also writing down my list because I have to do that first. If
mm,
I don't do that, then I almost start in like a deficit. Like I start in a place of like scarcity of like, oh,
mm,
the things that are going wrong. But like it's a mindset shift when you start every single day with the
being
first thing you do
thankful.
is write down what you're grateful for. Like
Uh,
every day. I have to do it. If I don't do it, like my day is like a hot mess. So I that is one thing that renews my mind. And
I
you have
might
to
steal
do your
this
mind
one
every
too,
day.
girl. I
Listen,
like
do
that.
do
I
it
like
before
that.
anybody wakes up, before you
Yeah.
sit down to do your work or you do, and even before I like open the Bible, because like I can't,
Mm,
I feel, because then I feel like I'm just reading it, like I'm not really absorbing it. But like
right.
if I start by gratitude, then it really, really helps me like get my mind into a good place to be able to even accept or like really absorb what I'm reading in the Bible. So like before I
Hmm.
do anything, that's the first thing I do.
Wow. Love that. What about your body?
Well, this one is still a work in progress. But one thing I do, I love intermittent fasting, meaning I don't eat before 12 every day.
Hmm.
And um I know they like we grew up saying like breakfast is the most important meal of the
It's a
day.
lie.
Oh, it's a
The
total lie.
the first meal is the most important meal, and I
Right.
think that's the main thing. Sorry, let me let you
Yeah.
talk. Sorry.
It doesn't need to be breakfast though, right? So I skip
Yeah.
breakfast every day. Breakfast used to stress me out because first of all, it's a lot of carbs. It's like carb heavy a lot of times for the fastings, right? And you're like rushing in the morning, whatever. So then you would load up on carbs and then you just like hit a slump in like 2 or 3 hours. So now I just don't eat breakfast. It alleviates so much stress because I don't have to think about it.
Right.
And it helps me feel like less like clutter in my mind. I don't know why. Like there's some research on it, but like it does work for me. So the days I like don't stick to intermittent fasting, my body doesn't feel great. But for me, intermittent fasting has been amazing. So that's what I stick to. And it's just super easy. Like you're just like, I'm just gonna not eat breakfast every day. So
Right.
that really works for me.
Okay. What about your soul?
How do I renew my soul? So I would say definitely. So I talked about like my gratitude routine, but like
Hmm.
immediately after my gratitude routine is when I do like my prayers. I'm just a person that I write everything. So like if you come to my office, there's just like notebooks and books like everywhere. So I write my prayers because it just helps me to I it helps me to connect with God more when I'm writing because I don't know why like when I'm speaking my prayers I still do that but I feel my
Hmm.
mind wandering. I don't know, it just
Hmm.
helps me to stay more centered when I write my prayers. So I just write my prayers every morning. um and I write a scripture, a relevant scripture every day, based on like whatever devotion I'm reading, but I just make
Right.
sure I write down whatever I'm praying for every single day.
That's awesome. And then we'll conclude with your favorite quote.
My favorite quote. See, I had my scripture ready. I should have had my quote ready. Great quote. Um, all I'm coming up with are scriptures.
No,
So
it
I'll
could be scriptures. It could be scriptures. It
okay.
doesn't have to be
So
like a
I
quote.
okay. So Philippians 4:6, which is be anxious for nothing, but in everything with prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. So again, anxiety. is like kind of like a baseline in my life, right? And I didn't even realize that until I got a therapist. So I love that scripture because what it's saying is everything that I say, right? It's like God didn't just say, be anxious for nothing,
Right.
done. He was like, be anxious for nothing, but here's what you do instead. Here's what you
Mm-hmm.
do instead so that you're not anxious. You
Right.
pray and have your supplication with thanksgiving. And that's the gratitude part, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that when you do that, that's how you're not anxious. That's how you change your mindset from anxiety to gratitude and abundance. So it's more about like that scripture is about not just like an affirmation. Like I could stand in the mirror and be like, be anxious for nothing, Kim. Or I can like do these things and that's gonna help alleviate my
Right.
anxiety.
Right. No, this has been I always say this, but I feel like every episode I do is a fantastic episode. This has been a
Because your
fantastic
podcast is the bomb.
episode.
That's why.
Oh my God. No, this has actually been a very fantastic episode. Like I have learned so much. From so in this episode, like as you guys all know, we talked about being the seven principles of being eagle. I'm gonna do a short synopsis of those and also put in the show note in our website. We talked about how Dr. Kim came about to start her amazing podcast, Productive on Purpose, and I'm gonna put her information there. Like I'm not just saying this to say sake. Like it's really going to help you if you already, even if you are doing it. Like a lot of the things she says on there, I do it already, but it's good to know that someone else is also doing it, right? I didn't just make this up, right? So someone else
Mhm.
is also doing it and it's working for them and I'm following her and I'm learning from her. Just like the eagle, you have to continue to learn. So I'm learning from her too. So definitely go check it out. We also learned about the pop principle. I'm gonna put the five pot principles on the stuff, but you have to go in her podcast and learn each individual one. And she expands a lot more on her podcast about it. But just remember, it's prayer, zone of proximal greatness, mindset doesn't matter, the morning promise, purpose, and the edges. Am I missing anything? I think I got
Nope,
them.
you got it. You got it.
Ah!
Go you.
And in summary, we kind of learned about how we balance our life as a whole. So, with that being said, please tell them how they can get in touch with you. I'm going to put in a show note, but some people may not have a time to actually go in the show note.
Yeah.
Do you mind just telling them how they can get in touch with you, Dr. Kimmy?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can email me at contact@productivepurpose.com. The website is www.productivepurpose.com. Or like the social media account that I'm usually on the most is Instagram. So you could shoot me a DM. And my Instagram handle is productive_on_purpose. And just search productive on purpose in any podcast app and it should come up.
Awesome. So, thank you all for joining us for another inspiring episode of Lolly Tasking. We'll definitely have all this information as stated prior in our show notes. But if you have any questions, you can always go to www.lollytasking.com or just don't forget to follow us on IG at lollytaskers.com. Till next time, remember you can do it too with some planning, a little bit of balance, and a dash of determination. Have a good one. See you next time.
Thanks for hanging out with us on another inspiring episode of Lolly Tasking. If you have any questions or topics you would like for us to discuss, please contact me via lollytasking.com, or better yet, you could just send me a direct message on Instagram at lollytasker. If you've liked what you've heard today, what are you waiting on? Just go ahead and click that subscribe button, rate, and leave a great review on iTunes. And of course, do share with your friends. Till next time, this is Lolly Tasking.